So in a continuation of the theme of the tetractys, which is starting with your point and making a mark or a dot, then you would progress to a line. And from a line, you are trying to make a geometric shape or possibly an organic shape. And we're going to talk a little bit about the organic shape and the geometric shape in this little section here. And from that point, you want to see if you can take your shape, whether it's geometric or organic, and try to make it into form, three-dimensional form. So we're going to have a little fun playing with this now. And this gets to be where we get to start adding into a little bit more creativity as well. So to begin with, what I've started here is I have a trapezoid shape, geometric shape, trapezoid shape here. And I'm keeping it nice and light so they can make lots of changes as we move in. And as you can see, we have this shape. It's trapezoid. It's very flat. And then I'm going to add a second trapezoid shape up here. We'll add on to that. And so now we have two shapes. We have this shape in here. We have another shape in here. And then the idea of line is, so we'll take the line in here, and it's just, remember, it's just a section where a line spans 2 points. So if we start, here's our starting point, and maybe we just can continue down through here, and we can go whatever way we want, like lots of squigglies. And this continues, and then we have our line. Now these are our shapes. Remember, they define an area. This shape here defines an area. They are flat planes. They are two-dimensional. This is just a steady line, a flowing line. It does not define an area. It has no enclosure. It just continues on. I've also added in here, just to have another type of shape, I've added a egg-shaped oval. So now we have a little variation from what we covered earlier, where we went over the triangle, the rectangle, the cube. These are some more unusual shapes. And you can find a lot of these different types of shape in our natural world. And it's very helpful to look at things you want to draw, simplify them into very simple shapes, and then later progress to adding the anatomy and so forth to create something that's very realistic. So now that we have just a quick cover, just a quick review of different types of the elements of drawing, what I would like to do now is take this idea from just a simple geometric shape, and I kept this kind of light, and I'm going to kind of go over it with a little bit different line here. And I want to start to add what I feel is more unusual area around the edges and make it into more of an organic shape. It'll still remain flat, but I want it to have a sense that it is no longer geometric, but a little bit more like something you would see in the natural world. So definitely a more organic shape. So here, let me just mess around with this for a minute while you can watch and try to see what might be happening here. It could, the idea is too of an organic shape is to think of maybe a topographical view, possibly of a mountain range, a lake, a large pond, the ocean. So when you think of all those unusual shapes going around, especially say the circumference of a lake, maybe we have inlets and so forth and things like that. Maybe something coming down in here and then there and so forth. And you can have all these different shapes. So it's no longer geometric. We're trying to create things that are a little bit more unusual. And where we have the lake, maybe we have a little stream flowing through here, and can have some more inlets and so forth. But this is still the continuation of lines. So why don't we continue this into a larger geometric or organic shape, and so that we'll, in order to get rid of this line, we need to define an area. So how about we do something like this? So now maybe we have maybe there's a body of water in here. Maybe this is the shoreline. It could be mountain range. It could be all sorts of different things. Okay, so, and then I'll still leave this a little geometric shape in here for the time being, and we'll see what we can come up with the rest. So now, as you can see, if we were to erase that area in there where we had the geometric shapes, we'll just try to lighten this a little bit so that you're more aware of the organic area. Normally I don't erase, but I just want to make it clear so that now you can see the contours a little bit. So when you see all these lines going around the edges, that's also referred to as a contour line. But in general, the overall thing, this is now an organic shape. So this shape comes in here. So we have this shape, then we have this shape. And if you notice, it all connects now. So an area is very distinctly defined. So we have an organic shape up here. We have an organic shape up here. And I left this geometric shape so you can see the difference. And again, if you notice, the lines were kept very light so I can make lots of changes, lots of additions, and all sorts of different things as I move along. So now what I want to do is, how do we make this look like its form? All right, we have the shape. It's sort of interesting and unusual, but our ultimate goal is to create something that's three-dimensional. So initially, what I want to do is just create an image that's three-dimensional, but using line only. I'll shade it a little bit later so that you can see what it would look like when it's fully shaded. But for right now, I just want to go back in and try to create an interesting image that is actually something that could be combined from nature, but also using your imagination, a little bit of fantasy. And in order to do this, I have to start adding lines with inside of the shape. Otherwise, it's always just going to remain a flat shape. And I want it to become something that's interesting, but I also want to have it become a three-dimensional form. Remember, three-dimensional form is intellectually one of the most challenging things there is to do in the fine arts. All right, so now I'll just work a little bit here while you guys watch, and we'll see if you can come up with maybe an image of your own. And as I'm doing this, you guys can kind of see what you think you might be looking at. And I'm allowing you to kind of engage in this and allow you to participate by seeing where the lines are going and what you might think this is happening. And I usually, when I begin these drawings, I don't have a preconceived idea. I just start drawing and see what happens as we go. Sometimes some things work out. Sometimes I make changes along the way. And that's why it's so important to try to keep things light. So now, as you can see, this organic shape is starting to develop into an image. Hopefully you're beginning to see something that's a little bit recognizable at this point. But what I haven't talked about now is we still have this geometric image in here. So now I'm going to take this geometric image, which you probably, as you're watching me draw and whatnot, maybe forgot a little bit about this, and it maybe looked just a little bit like a hole. But now I'm going to start adding to this, and we'll see if we can make something kind of interesting here. So as you can see, I'm adding lots of lines inside of the form, inside of the shape to create the form. And it should be coming now so it's less and less flat and a little bit more sculptural and three-dimensional. So here we go. We have kind of a dragon type creature here. Kind of a nice little royal dragon. And then we have a humanoid creature in here. So basically, instead of a man's best friend is usually referred to as a dog. So I'm going to make here the artist's best friend is his pet dragon. So we got the artist and his dragon. And now, without any shading whatsoever at this point, we kind of have the three-dimensional. We started with a trapezoid and another trapezoid up here, and then we started with just a line, and then we changed that to make it an organic shape, which could have been like the topographical view of a lake or a mountain range or a hillside. And we had the geometrical shape of the egg-shaped oval. And then I gradually went back in and I started adding lots of line and all sorts of different anatomical structure into the inside of the shape to start to make it look three-dimensional. Here by wrapping this around in the contour lines, it helps makes it look more sculptural and rounded. And here I'll come in this way so that I feel that it wraps around all the way around that form. And then in here, this is the little beak. We have some of the anatomical structure of the face features. We have the eye, the eyelids, and so forth. And then it's important to try to get the anatomy right, that it could be believable. So having studied both animal anatomy and human anatomy, it enables me to start adding some of that structure and combining it into something to make it a little bit more realistic. So this is where we can get to by using the tetractys. So we started with a very simple point. We lifted it, we were left with a mark or a dot, whichever you prefer to call it. And then we started to create shapes. We used the trapezoid shapes. From the shapes, we then moved on to create organic shapes. And then after the organic shapes, I started to add structure, anatomical structure inside of those shapes to start to create something that would have a little bit of three-dimensional form and get to the point that we're at right now. So I will now spend a little bit of time doing a time lapse at this point so that I can go ahead and finish shading, so that you can see how I will take this whole drawing portion and turn it into a more finished drawing incorporating shading.